Thank you for staying with us. The Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Ariwoola, has summoned the Chief Judge of the Federal High Court and the Chief Judge of Kano State High Court over conflicting interim orders on the Kano Emirate Tussle. The Federal High Court in Kano, presided over by Justice Amobeda, issued an order for the eviction of Emir Muhammadu Sanusi II from the Kofar Kudu Palace, reinforcing the authority of the 15th Emir of Kano, Aminu Ado Bayero. In another development, the Kano State High Court, or under the jurisdiction of Justice Amina Adamu Aliyu, issued an injunction to protect Muhammadu Sunusi. Well, joining us in our Abuja studio is Group CEO, Global Investment and Trade Company, Baba Yusuf. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having Veronica and Ibrahim. Good to be here.
Right. Now, this development has caused a lot of concern in that section of the country, talking about legal luminaries coming out to speak with regards to the implication of these kinds of conflicting orders arising with regards to a particular case. A lot of Nigerians also talking about how this is also impacting their confidence on the judiciary. But from your perspective, talk to us how you interpret what is going on.
Thank you very much. This is a very important topic to me as a son of Kano and as a child of the traditional institution, custodians of spirituality and our culture as Africans. It appears the engagements and the conversations that have been going on in the last couple of weeks with all our eyes on the judiciary and the legal profession. Recall a couple of days ago, there was a conference convened by the Minister of Justice, Attorney General of the Federation, to discuss about the need for judicial reforms. And we heard a lot of rhetorics and straight talk from legal luminaries and jurists, including the Chief Justice of the Federation of Nigeria, our President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and other well-meaning Nigerians with regards to how things are getting worse in the judiciary. The gatekeepers of peace, the gatekeepers of justice, from political issues, to business matters, how Nigeria is losing, within the realm of judiciary and legal practice. Now it has become another spectacle, with regards to the custody and the, protection of our traditional institution, particularly in the case of Kano State. The tussle in Kano State, how it started, we can see now how the judiciary, yet again, sadly so, have thrown spanners, in the works, adding, to the crisis and escalating the issues in Kano, leading to a situation whereby we have a stalemate and we have a very tense situation in Kano. We hope that at the end of the day, reason will prevail. I commend the Chief Justice of the Federation of Nigeria for stepping in to try to intervene. I also commend the President of the Nigerian Bar Association for also coming out on behalf of the entire NBA, because this is a smear on the NBA. Let us not forget that every judge is first of all a lawyer before he becomes a judge. So this is a big issue for the legal practice in its entirety, and particularly the judiciary. I think these positions taken in the last 48 hours will most likely bring sanity with regards to Kano in particular. But I hope also this will, set a standard going forward for the reform of the judiciary. I join my voice to call for full investigation with regards to all critical players in this issue, in terms with regards to this, countering, injunctions and judicial power play, if I may call it. We hope at the end of the day things will be better in the interest of the people of Kano and the interest of Nigerians.
Well, looking at the issue, the aftermath of the removal of Bayero and the four emirs, in Bichi, Rano, Gaya, Karaye, about 4 contrary rulings have actually been issued by, at least about 3 different judges. and with the summon of the two judges for giving conflicting orders. How do you think the judiciary should handle it, and what implications do you think this has had on the administration of justice, especially with the fact that some people are finding it difficult to respect the rule of law and even trust whatever comes out of the court?
Thank you very much, Ibrahim. You said it aptly. And I hope the judiciary, the jurists, will understand that the respect and the reverence with which Nigerians and even foreigners that engage in business in Nigeria or relationships, that reverence and respect is waning. I remember many years ago, even, which is not too long ago when you consider, let's say 100 years ago, 50 years ago, the level of respect, people have for judges, whether they are even customary court judges or Sharia court judges or even the secular judges. And as time goes on, that respect is waning. The institution is becoming demystified. We have seen here in this country just some years ago where a Chief Justice of the Federation had to face graft and other judges. And we hear how people procure judgments. It appears they are not conscious of this issue and how they have become, like you rightly said, spectacle to the extent that people are losing confidence, in the judiciary. And I agree with the mantra or the principle that where rule of law, waits away, then self-help will be the game. And when self-help comes, anarchy prevails, like we see what almost happened in Kano. Personally, I have been a victim of miscarriage of justice, so I feel what you are saying loud and clear. And some of us have even written how bad things have become, that judges are actually becoming the stumbling blocks to justice with regards to fight against corruption. And in these cases where there was no need to deliberately bring this confusion that we have in Kano, it appears a lot of judges have become political or business-like, IDIC. And that is what is bringing these issues. Judges are supposed to be above board. Judges are supposed to be apolitical. Judges are supposed to be neutral, quote and unquote. But it is becoming obvious that their hands are being played in a way and manner that there is need for serious introspection within the judiciary for them to reclaim their respect so that their judgments and the processes of administration of justice will be respected by all. At least justice should seem to be done, even if it is not done.
Now, you've talked about reform of the judiciary and how it is that it's important that they reclaim their, perhaps, confidence that people repose on them. But some will say that that will be a long walk to freedom. Recall that they have often talked about the matters of financial autonomy. We see how they are brought into office and positions. How really can we have these reforms when we still have these bottlenecks?
Thank you, Veronica. I like that statement, long walk to freedom. Very apt. And like you rightly said, if we say we want to do reform, how can you reform judiciary that is always begging, cap in hand, no financial autonomy, no structural autonomy, no operational autonomy? We have, of course, been calling and speaking about this operationalization of the autonomy of judiciary, very critical. The same way, I have also written and we have been speaking about the operational autonomy of the local government system. So there is a lot to be done for the judiciary to be free of the shackles, of the vested interest, in fairness to the judiciary. But then, to whom what is given, what is expected, when people decide to pursue a career in the judiciary, they should know what it entails. First of all, what is the persona of the people going into judiciary? I also agree with you. What kind of people are we having as judges? And this goes to the legal practice. Of course, part of what I said when I did a position paper with regards to reform of judiciary is that, first of all, the remuneration, which is not just with judiciary. I was here speaking with you some days ago with regards to the moral corruption. That you don't pay people, you undercut them, or you underpay them, and you expect them to remain above board. And I'll give you an instance with the instance of what I heard from, excerpts of conversations with late Lee Kuan Yew, the former president of Singapore. who reiterated the importance of paying, the right kind of remuneration for people holding offices so that you can also morally hold them to account. And I remember somewhere where he said, if they hire people, from the top companies, global companies, to bring them to their country, back to their country to serve, they pay the remuneration they are earning there. Then you have the moral right to challenge them for not being correct. So I agree with you, it's a holistic societal issue. But we will not say we will wait until we get there, because the people that are judges are human beings. First of all, the level of decadence in judiciary is going below whatever standard you can think about. Because the truth is, they are holding the office and they have sworn to an oath on an office. And these issues, like we said, is going around the entire circuit of the judiciary. There's spotlight right from the Supreme Court down to the lowest court in the magistrate court, around the circuits of court, whether it's customary or secular or Islamic. So there is need for them to demonstrate that they have earned the respect of people, while we'll continue to advocate and pursue for the right thing to be done. Until there is autonomy of judiciary, a lot of reforms will not take place. There's also need for capacity building. You still have judges writing in longhand. I've been in many matters as a litigant, and I will see judges taking copious note of whatever you are saying. So these are part of the issues. But parking that aside, I think it has to do with the personality of these people, who are a subset of a society, an overall society called Nigeria, whose value system has been eroding over time. And let us also not forget, like a former, leader of the German Empire said, the judges too are civil servants. And if you don't deal with corruption in the civil service, you don't expect anything to change anyways.
Mm-hmm. Interesting stuff. But then beyond the court issues, orders and counter orders, if you look at, we talked about governance at the grassroots level, the need for more governing councils, so as to reach the blind spots in society. Critics believe that this was the best thing that have happened to Kano people, talking about the balkanization of the Kano Emirate during the Ganduje administration. For instance, the secretary of the Bichi Emirates Development Association, Bello Bichi, said that his people have vowed not to accept any arrangement other than the reversal of the new law, because the creation of the 5 emirates by the former administration of Abdullahi Ganduje brought development to their area vis-a-vis the Durbar event, which, hitherto had to travel to Kano and some other things. So they believe that that was the best thing that had happened to them. How do you see this bottleneck, in relations to the new law and then the contention, the issues, being contended?
I think we need to stratify the issues, Ibrahim. I am fully aware of the mechanics of dynamics of the intrigues of what is going on in Kano with regards to the traditional institution. I will not try to take sides but be objective, even though I'm an interested party. But I'll tell this real straight to every one of us. Let us not turn this into a home video. The gentleman, with all due respect, that is talking about the balkanization of the Emirate brought development to that area is insulting the leadership of Kano, the political leaders, the religious leaders, the traditional leaders. What happened to the government? We have a governor who has a mandate. We have local government chairman, even though we know they are hamstrung. We have senators, we have House of Rep members. Since when the traditional rulers become the operatives of bringing dividends of good governance in the locality? So it is when there was a carved out of beach emirates that suddenly, after almost 50 years of existence, then development came to that place. This is an insult on the intelligence of people. Let's come back to the main issue. Personally, like I said, as a child of traditional institution, as a Nigerian, and as someone that believes that as Africans, we should protect our traditional institutions. Balkanizing emirates and traditional institution, or sacking them every now and then, inadvertently creating a window and precedence where we'll be having new governor, new traditional ruler, will demystify the traditional institution and make them useless. Let me take you back a bit and remind you, Ibrahim and Veronica, what you know. Kano State traditional institution is over 1,000 years old. it used to be one of the largest and biggest traditional empires across the Sahel. Over time, the colonials came and then they stratified us, and it's not new. The same with Oyo Empire, the same with Benin Empire, and every other areas. Now, as time goes on, the scope of the span of influence and all that has been reducing over time. I don't think balkanization of an institution like Kano is the solution. And let us not forget, let us go back to the intent. You know, economic merchants and politicians from time immemorial have been the ones distorting our institutions, and we are sitting by thinking it's okay. Very soon, the traditional institutions will disappear, and then we'll lose our identities, whether it is Kano or Oyo or Lagos or Onitsha, everywhere. So let's not start, diminishing the span of influence, of these institutions with regards to the value they add to the society. As fathers, as religious figures, most of these traditional leaders are even religious leaders and spiritual leaders and custodians of our culture and tradition. Balkanizing emirates or kingdoms is not the solution, but that the traditional institutions themselves and members of the traditional institution, for example, now, whether it is Emir Aminu Ado Bayero or Emir Ado Bayero or Emir Muhammadu Sunusi II, to recognize that from time immemorial, they are supposed to be the masters of strategy and long-term vision. And now it appears outsiders, quote and unquote, whether the colonial masters that came for slavery to buy their subjects and give them bottles of whiskey or whatever, or now politicians, destabilizing them and using them, turning the table of the chess. It is so sad that traditional leaders are becoming pawns in a chess game that they are supposed to be grandmasters. Because at the end of the day, whether we like it or not, the Emirate of Kano is becoming more demystified. Before the balkanization, it was one of the biggest emirates in Nigeria, I dare say, because it's bestriding a state with over about 44 local governments. Now, whether this will help the poor people, because all the people talking are people like us that are elitists taking side. Have we heard from the poor people in every location to say, what difference does it make? Whether it is Emir Muhammadu Sanusi II or Emir Ado Bayero or the balkanized areas. Don't forget also, one of the emirs had actually conceded and said whatever happens, the Emir of Kano said however it comes, he's not going to contest, he's ready to move with the new status quo that will entail. So Nigerians and citizens should look carefully at what is happening in Kano and going forward to understand that politicians are inadvertently killing our traditional institutions. At the twilight of the administration of Yahaya Bello, former governor of Okogi, he destroyed or he deposed two emirs that for over 100 years have been critical pillars of peace and stability of Kogi, even in the older day Kwara. And one of them is the Emir of Kotonkarifi. He deposed the Emir because of political difference and exiled him to Rijau in Niger State. So for the other traditional institutions that are sitting pretty watching, it is becoming a norm that at the end of the day, we may not have an enduring traditional institution again, which has started right from the 1841s, Oba, Akitoye of Lagos, who became Oba, and was deposed, and he had issue with Kosoko, his brother, and then later the British Empire returned him. So the traditional institutions and their custodians should recognize that together they are better. A house that is divided will not stand. For citizens to recognize, we still need to identify with our traditional core values and spirituality to remain Africans. Let us not lose our originality. Let us not become also pawns in the hands of politicians that have serially failed to deliver dividends of democracy and focus on the issues. Challenge the traditional institution to do the right thing and challenge politicians to deliver dividends of democracy. But this infighting is a distraction for you and I so that people will not deliver. Balkanization of emirate or consolidation of emirate is not the issue. What is the price of Gari today? Can they pay, the people in Bichi or in Kano, can they pay for one punch of blood? These are the issues that should be concerning all of us, including the emirs that are fighting each other, with all due respect to them.
So we can make judicious use of our time. This matter you have raised is a major concern to a lot of persons who have also pointed out a situation where some traditional rulers were asked to stand up and sit down to perhaps greet, recognize a governor. And this is a matter that we need to really address. Is it possible for us to protect our traditional institution from politics as we see it, knowing that these governors are the ones that perhaps put them in office and also have the opportunity to depose them whenever they want and for whatever reason they want? How do we protect the institution? I believe should be the next conversation we should be having as it is. There are those saying that governors should not have the powers to depose them. What do you say?
Veronica, thank you very much. And I'm going to take note on this. We need to take up this conversation, no, seriously, because it is part of our identity as a people. We cannot become surrogates of colonial masters and lose our identity. So thank you very much. I commend you for that. And please, I use this opportunity to call all of us, including the media, to make it a conversation. Having said that, I think it is time for this to change. And the people that will change it is the people themselves. I remember as far back, like I said, in the 1841, 1888, the likes of King Jaja of Opobo, the likes of Oba of Verenwem of Benin Kingdom, and the likes of Oba Ekitoye, of 1841. You see, the process of their depositions and how some of them came back or they are exiled is becoming more different. And when you move forward to around 1950s, particularly around 1955 or so, if I'm correct, when late Obafemi Awolowo, the premier of the Western region, deposed Alaafin of Oyo, Oba Aderemi and all that. And in 2005, when Governor Alero deposed Emir of Gandu, then it started becoming political from the 50s to the 60s. Particularly the watershed moment on the negative side for the traditional institutions is around 1966-67, when some progressive elements that felt the traditional rulers' institutions were becoming more politicized and are leaning towards the center, that is the government in power, and while some of them are beginning to flex muscles with the likes of, a Western premier like Obafemi Awolowo, now a law was passed during the military regime that reduced the status of traditional institutions and basically, cornered them to local government level. So my own Tenkovo conversation with regards to this is we should have a conversation even at the legislative level to come out with a framework that will protect the institution in the interest of the conservation and preservation of our identities. All of us Nigerians come from somewhere where we have traditional institutions. So it should become a matter of concern to us, because whoever you are, you came from somewhere. And that who you are is your identity. We see our brothers and sisters in the United States, elsewhere, trying to trace their genealogy centuries behind to understand who they are. Whoever does not have a root or does not identify with his or her roots is a lost soul. And taking it from there, I will use this opportunity also to speak to the traditional institutions. Like I said earlier, they became the pawns in the game of politicians. They should recognize that respect for themselves and recognizing they are together, they are better and stronger than they are either balkanized or they are playing this fiddle politics. The previous leaders were politicians. Every man is a political animal. But they should be more strategic and play more neutral role than this. And then another thing is this materialism. Most of them are so materialistic that they kowtow to these governors. It's a spectacle. Veronica, like you say, it's true. A traditional leader that knows his worth will have standards that he should not reduce to. And by the time politicians start deposing and deposing and depose up to 10, you will realize that the trend will change. They are masters of strategy. They are warriors, masters of war. It doesn't mean you engage in the combatant manner, but strategic positioning will consolidate. And these politicians will now refocus on delivery of good governance. We will come with suggestions on how some policy frameworks will come, and maybe there's a second layer, that is not within the hands of the politicians, that will ensure that if an emir or an oba or an obi is going to be removed, the process should go beyond that layer. Otherwise, like we are seeing in Kano, different governors, different leaders, and then it will become a clownish situation with all due respect. there won't be respect for the traditional institution, there won't be respect for the judiciary. The politicians already, I don't know whether they care. And what kind of society are we building, to be honest?
Funnily enough, I'm wondering how that is going to happen because, we've adopted democracy and then the system of government, separation of powers is just, among the executive, judiciary, and the legislature. But the emirate, let's say traditional leadership is more traditional and to some extent more dictatorial than what democracy tries to, advance.
Yes.
But how do you think they can coexist? Because all of this boils down to economic power. The state, the state is being controlled by the governor. It has the legislative arm, and also it has the local government, which is not even functional. So how do you think they can coexist? In what way do you think, what framework do you think can possibly work?
Okay, let us get something right, Ibrahim. This democracy, we are shouting democracy, was created by some kind of people. And progressive countries have adopted democracy, albeit they customize it. So let's get it right. This is not cast in stone. Singapore adopted democracy and blended it. And I remember also going back to Lee Kuan Yew, where he said at a point, the proponents of democracy were calling him names that he is thwarting fundamental human rights and all that. But he came with a system with his colleagues that was good for Singapore. Some of the forward-thinking progressive countries in the world are the monarchical systems of Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, and to some extent Morocco. I'm not saying we should become monarchical. What I'm saying is that this is a country of almost over 200 million very intelligent, sound people that are deeply rooted in culture and spirituality, while we are aligning with our beliefs and our books, either as Christians or Muslims. So I don't believe that politicians, we should allow our destiny in the hands of politicians who obviously don't give a damn about you or I. All they are after is for themselves and their children. So we should be more forward-thinking, depending on the areas we are coming from, to say, you know what? It is about legislation. Yes, we agree with the principle of separation of powers. But like I said earlier, there is nobody that didn't come from somewhere. So we can go through advocacy and say, let us review this framework to protect the institution in the interest of everybody. Our president is coming from a particular part of the country. He respects traditional institutions. He is a lover of restoration or preservation of traditional institutions. The same thing with the governors. We still have the good ones. So Nigerians should sit down and say, do we want this, our identity, to disappear? Or do you want to recalibrate it so that even the traditional rulers will now realize that it's not going to be business as usual? They are going to respond to the yearnings and aspirations of people with regards to the role of traditional institutions going forward. So it's a redefinition of who we are with regards to traditional institution and the role it will play, because presently they are almost dormant also, the traditional institution. I close with this, and I hope that we'll have more forum to have this conversation.
I believe and hope so as well. Thank you so much, Baba Yusuf.
Thank you very
Group
much.
Global Investment and Trade Company, for your time on the program. Thank you.
Appreciate. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right.